Today on For What It's Nerd, we are discussing all things strange with the Strange New Worlds premiere for Season 3, as well as the Season 5 trailer for Stranger Things. Before we get into that, however, I do want to discuss the fact that For What It's Nerd is now 3 years old as of Wednesday, just gone. And that is so exciting. The fact we've done this for 3 years, I feel like I've really began to cultivate how I talk about film. I feel like we're making videos that matter. I think, Superman last week was an example where we're talking about things that actually matter. Aren't just about a movie, but they're about the context of those movies. They're about what those movies mean to people, and more to the fact, kind of cutting through the chatter that is out there. Not even chatter, the vitriol that is out there. And that's what for What It's Nerd for me was always about. The Ironheart video a few weeks back, people were very toxic on that video, regards saying that I was talking, I was being a shill, I was being too pro MCU, and I fundamentally disagree with that. If you watch that video, if you take in what I'm saying in that video, you understand that I'm saying that actually it was very middle of the road, but it had potential. It didn't live up to that because there wasn't investment in it. I think we've always been pretty fair on this channel, and that's what I will continue to do. That's what I'm aiming to continue to do. Obviously, I'm getting a lot more into these videos now. I'm kind of trying to take a little bit more time each week to have a few things going on in the video, or 3 or 4 things, hopefully, maybe 1 or 2, depending on the week. Superman, of course, was a bigger one last week, so that was the one topic. But, I'm trying to make this a more substantial podcast for you guys. I hope you guys can see that and feel that. Lastly, I think I'm trying to get more people on board. I want more people to discuss these things with me. I talk film and all that type of stuff with friends all the time. I would love to have that be on here. So if you are in the audience and you are a close friend of me or the channel, always feel free to reach out. Always let me know what you're thinking, because I would love to either feature you in some way, even if it's like, hey, this is what I thought of the movie. Note it down. To discuss that as a talking point, and kind of me react to you as kind of like almost like a mailbag type thing, or otherwise have you guys on. Tater has come on occasion. I do enjoy when Tater comes on. I remember season 1 we had a lot more guests. I'd like to do that more and more, and hopefully we get there. Hopefully. So that said, thank you guys so much for 3 years. And let's continue on. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about, as I said, Strange New Worlds and Stranger Things. And first off, I want to discuss something that's actually relevant to both of these shows, and that is the wait for these shows. Now, Stranger Things Season 5 is a lot longer of a wait. I feel like that we've been waiting for that for an eternity. I think it's about 3 years. Is it something like that? Strange New Worlds, not so much 2 years, but still, TV at the moment is a really hard one, I think, because it's taking so long to get a second season out that no one's invested anymore when that comes out, because there's already been 3 or 4 more shows with a season of something else that people have been interested in. And I felt that very keenly with Strange New Worlds this week, watching the new episodes, because they ended on a cliffhanger. And a cliffhanger works when you've got something that is coming out relatively quickly after the last one, but when you've got 2 years wait, and it is almost 2 years, it's about 2 months off 2 years by the time this has come out. Actually, a month. Yeah, so it's 23 months essentially since the end of season 2 of Stranger New Worlds, and so that pacing, that emotional payoff is not as strong. Now, I didn't go back and watch the finale of season 2 before I watched season 3. I didn't have the time, but I feel like that'll run better if you're watching the show, binging it now, so to speak. But it's hard when you've got such a wait between, because I was really interested in how season 2 ended, because it was very like, whoa, these people have been captured, this is happening, how is that going to be resolved? And then 2 years later, here we are. And I didn't even know this was coming out, by the way. I got an alert from Paramount Plus on my phone, and I was like, oh, wow, season 3 finally. And then I watched it promptly. But yeah, somewhat frustrating in that way. And again, the same with Stranger Things season 5. This show has gone on so long, and people make the comment of this all the time, don't they? They make the comment that I'm literally retired now. Obviously they're not, but it's been such a long project in terms of the fact that the kids aren't even kids anymore. And not that they were not that they have been for a while, to be fair, but they're not kids anymore. And it's almost getting beyond the suspension of disbelief. So do I feel excited about these shows? Yes. Am I still interested in them? Yes. But do I feel like the excitement is tamped down by the fact that production time seems to be taking longer and longer with shows? Not just these two, but shows in general. Yeah, and I think it's a struggle. I think obviously you can't make something that's bad. I don't want something made that's bad, but I do kind of like. I feel like if you're going to do something that's so cliffhangery, or even more so, if you're going to do something that doesn't round off completely, like again, the end of Stranger Things season 4 was very much the same, right? You get them coming back to the town, and I forget the name of the town, which is really bad, but you get them come back to the town and they're looking out across what's going to happen, like basically the start of season 5. Obviously, I don't know if they're going to do a time skip in the actual show, but it did feel like very much like, oh, we're going to go straight into the action of that in season 5. And of course, we waited a long time for that. So, I mean, I've actually moved house since like I've moved house, I've changed jobs, everything since that came out. Like my whole life has changed since that came out, season 4. And also the other thing is as well, and this is another one for Stranger Things, not so much for Strange New Worlds, but the runtime of some of those episodes has been dropped, and it's like 2-hour like length. Like at that point, if you're going to do that, I personally would have had you, and they're going to split it into volume 1 and volume 2 anyway. Some dropping, I believe, Christmas, and some dropping New Year's Day or something like that. In my head, I don't know if this is just too logical, and maybe not possible on set. Depends on how they've recorded this all. But why did they not? If they're going to be like 2-hour, for like 2-hour movies essentially for each episode, there's 2 ways you could go about it personally, because they've obviously been working on this for a long time, and they probably had some of those episodes ready to go for a long time. Either, why did you not drop some episodes sooner and do a volume 1 in like the middle of this year, and then do some at the end of this year and split it out and probably gain Netflix more profit that way? I don't know. I'm not an analyst, but or oppositely, in my head, if they're going to be movie length, release them periodically, right? Do what essentially they do with they've done with Doctor Who before, which is release every so often an episode that keeps you tied over, where you have like an adventure with the Doctor, and then like you go back to, okay, well, we don't have anything for a little bit, but we know that something else is coming. You drop those every few months, and you could kind of like pace it that way, almost serial. In a way. Now, that might be a little bit annoying in another way, but if they're 2 hours, 30 minutes, like, I'm not being funny. I struggled with Andor when they released 3 episodes at once. I do not think I'm going to be able to sit and watch 3 episodes of Stranger Things season 5 back to back. I don't even think I'm going to be able to watch 1 in one sitting. Like, that's a lot of film. That's a lot of movie. They are movies. They're not episodes at that point. 2 hours, 30 minutes and stuff like that. You're crazy. You're crazy. So personally, I would have spaced it out better, in my opinion. But let's let them get on. Let's see what it comes of it. Yeah. So that's my take on that side of things. What I will say, and I'll talk about Stranger Things first, because I don't feel like I have as much to say about that, is that I think Stranger Things season 5, it's more of the same. And how do I put this nicely? I didn't dislike season 1 to 4 of Stranger Things, and I actually very much enjoyed it. I liked a lot of the acting, and I got into it later compared to everyone else. I binged watched season 1 to 4 as 4 was coming out. So like that was like 3 years ago now. And I enjoyed that then. But it's not something that holds integral weight to me. It's not something that has been part of my childhood, or for like it has for some people, or it's not been something I've grown up with. So I don't think I have that lean on it. I don't think I have that sort of bias to it. And because of that, I think I can look at it and say it's basically okay. I don't dislike it as a show. I think it's got some interesting concepts, but I think it's been played out. And I think, I don't know if this show needed 5 seasons. Like, if I'm being completely honest, it feels like some of the twists and turns this show has been on have been less than necessary to me. So when I'm watching season 5's trailer and I'm seeing like, oh yeah, there's the Demodogs or whatever they're called, and then there's the Demogorgon, Is that what they call? I like. See, I'm not like the biggest, but then you see those guys, and then you see Vecna, and like it's going through and it's kind of checklisting all the kind. It's like self-congratulatory. It insists upon itself in the words of Peter Griffin, which ironically I've never watched Family Guy. I just know that quote. It insists upon itself. It does feel like that in a way. It feels like Stranger Things is burgeoning under its own weight at this point. And I don't know if this season's going to be good, bad. Either way, it's probably going to be interesting. And obviously, it's going to be a phenomenon regardless, because so many people have kind of become invested in this show. It's like Harry Potter for this generation in a way, right? For that generation, not mine. So in a way, I think people will still very much enjoy that last season and have a lot to say about it. I don't know if I do necessarily, and I don't think that trailer gave me anything to be extremely hype about. I don't think it actually gave any kind of understanding of what's going to go on, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like someone was saying in the comment of the section of the video where the trailer was released, that it was just all vibes, and I think that's right. I think they said that like they actually really enjoyed the fact it was just vibes, and I think sometimes you can get away with just vibes, but for me, I didn't get any excitement from it, so the vibes failed on me, so to speak. So we'll see how it turns out. I probably will have a little bit of a discussion on it. It might even be like the first episode, like because I'll take time over the holidays to watch it all. It might be like the first episode I do when we come back for season 5. Which will be exciting. Season 5. Whoa. Later in this year, of course, because it's coming out in like, well, there's some in November as well. So we might actually be doing some in November and then some in December. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm not super enthralled with the trailer. So we'll see if anything else releases closer to the time that gets me a little bit more excited. Regards Strange New Worlds, I've kind of discussed the first episode to a degree already, in saying that the pathos of that episode was kind of less, the emotional depth of that episode was less because of the wait between seasons. Other than that, I actually really liked it. I obviously I didn't get to talk about season 2 because I was behind when I watched season 2. Compared to everyone else, and this happens so often with TV stuff for me. I'm usually way behind, but I will say that I actually really enjoy the development of the Gorn. I think they're one of the least developed of the original series as aliens, and seeing them get this big storyline across last season and into this season's beginning, and it seems kind of have some kind of repercussions on some of the cast members thereafter. It's good, and I like that, and I think very interesting it's always interesting when you go back to something that's a classic and give it more depth, right? And so like you saw that with the Klingons in season 1, not season 1 of this, season 1 of Star Trek Discovery, sorry. And so seeing this kind of be the same kind of deal, very interesting. So yes, I like that. What I find interesting with Strange New Worlds is I feel it captures, and it captivates, I guess, the audience in a very similar way to the original show. And what I mean by that is you have some of these very serious episodes. You have these very like moral kind of highbrow episodes where the stakes and the captain's got to make a decision, and there's an emergency, and you've got the kind of cerebral thought process of the bridge and all those types of things, right? And then you've got the next episode, because they've only released 2 episodes for Strange New Worlds so far of season 3, and that is the fact that you've got an episode right after that still deals with a very emotional response, in that Spock is dealing with this idea of having felt somewhat betrayed by what's going on with Christine Chapel in the show, and even despite feeling that, has to overcome that and act logically in effort to save everyone from what's going on. And I think that's a very cool dichotomy of his human and Vulcan sides, and I think that's what this show does really well, is actually delve into that so much more than what they have done in previous iterations. But what I really enjoyed about it is that it's actually a zany episode. It's relatively it's got a fun element to it, even though there's a serious sort of threat in that there's another Q, not the original Q, but a different Q, seemingly an offspring of Q. kind of creating machinations and being up to schemes, and quite funnily so, by the way, the actor who plays this like baby Q, if you want to put it that way, is actually very fun with it, and more to the point, the fact that the audience is in on it from the start, but the actors, the characters aren't, is very fun, because previously we've seen kind of what the actors have seen with Q, whereas this time we see kind of the opposite. We see the machinations unfolding, but we see how they have been made to unfold, if that makes sense. So I really enjoyed that. I think that's what I quintessentially love about Star Trek compared to other shows, is that Star Trek is allowed to be moral and dark and gritty at points, and then really go up to that levity and stay there. And it's funny because actually James Gunn has been talking about this for his DCU, right? Saying that he wants these kind of gritty moral tones, and then he wants to go into something that's a little bit more zany and fun and hopeful. And I think, as you get these franchises that get bigger and bigger, you kind of have to allow for that, right? That's what Star Wars does now. Star Wars has kids animation right up to something that's a little bit darker. They've not maybe gone all the way with something that's really dark, but yeah, they've got that kind of like different, like when Star Wars isn't just sci-fi. Like people think Star Wars is just sci-fi, but if you look into it, there's romance novels, there's kids TV shows, there's like anime, there's more comedy in a way, there's kind of whodunit, political thriller sort of stuff. There's all these different themes within Star Wars. They've got the spaghetti westerns, they've got like the Saturday morning cartoon vibe, because they've built so much of a mythos, right? And I think that's what Star Trek does as well. Star Trek has, the biggest example of it, of course, is Lower Decks, right? Lower Decks is a parody unto Star Trek itself in the best way possible. And yes, it insists upon itself, to use what I said earlier, but in a good way, in a funny way. It parodies itself and memes on itself and is silly with itself. And I think any show that can do that, any franchise that can do that, when you get into those grittier moments and something actually happens that is concerning or morally deep, they mean all the more, because you know that they've went that place because they need to for the storytelling, if that makes sense. It's kind of the opposite of what they did with Thor: Love and Thunder. Taika Waititi did with Thor: Love and Thunder, where you have such a comedy fest, and then you try and do a really emotional moment, and then you undercut it. Right, that the opposite is true here. There's comedy and there's fun and there's levity, but then it goes, oh no, and it goes right off the cliff, and it stays down there. It doesn't go back up. It doesn't just jump. Well, okay, then it stays in that pit. It stays with that emotional depth, and that's why I really love about Star Trek. So I think I've kind of really elucidated my thoughts on that. Obviously, I don't know what the rest of season 3 for Strange New Worlds is going to provide, and we'll see what happens with that. I might even end up doing, it depends these days because I don't get to do it as much as I'd like, but I might do a finale discussion once the season is out. We do know that season 4 is basically wrapped filming as well, which is going to be interesting to see how, if they do are they going to do another end to this show that's going to be a 2-parter, or are they going to end this one and then kind of like distinctly end it and then start again with the next one? We'll see. It does look like that one's going to come out in 2026 though, so even if they do a 2-parter, we won't be waiting as long as we have previously. So that's where I am for Star Trek and Stranger Things. It's hard when you're dealing with 2 properties called Strange, because you get their titles mixed up in your head. And again, of course, 3 years for What It's Nerd. Thank you guys so much for being loyal viewers throughout that period. I'm sure there'll be more to come. And in the meantime, thank you for watching and listening as always. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.